At the end of the day, you know, marriage is
Okay.
tough, but it's definitely worth it. And
You have to want it, though. You
Yeah.
have to want it, and you have to be willing to sacrifice and put in the effort for it, because it's like she said, it's not easy. I mean, and anything that's worth having is not going to be easy. You got to work for it. I mean, if marriage was super easy, then everybody would be married.
Totally. Welcome to This Beautiful Struggle.
I'm excited about it.
We finally have gotten to a point where we're just ready to share unfiltered our lives. Infertility is tough. Adoption is tough. But then even talking about like me losing my dad, you losing your mom within a couple of years of each other, our kids losing grandparents, your career and my career, and then making the ultimate decision to move to Nevada and what that looks like, moving away from all of your friends and family and all of those things.
Hopefully people can resonate with our story and just letting people know that they're not alone.
It's not the norm, and infertility is something that people don't ever want to talk about. Our family is such a hot mess, Express. I mean,
Yes,
this is just
every
what
day.
it is, right? Like,
Yes.
so we don't have to front anymore.
It's been a long time coming.
Welcome back to This Beautiful Struggle. I'm Erin,
And I'm KC.
and today's going to be fun. So we have built the stage and given you all a lot of background about our journey to becoming parents and all of that fun stuff. This will not be a crying episode, so don't worry. You don't need any tissues for this one. But we've gotten a lot of questions. And so we thought that, you know, we would answer some of those questions on this episode. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I'm down. Let's do it. People want to know about us.
Okay, so I don't know if we've ever talked about how we met. So do you want in like 60 seconds to say how we met? And then if I need to tell the truth, then I will.
The truth. So you're insinuating that I'm not going
Well,
to
I
tell
just
the
feel
truth?
like we have different stories. Okay, so
Okay.
fast, go.
Okay, very quickly. I'm a police officer. Erin is a dispatcher. There was an incident that happened at work. I ended up using force on someone,
Oh, gosh.
and
Sounds so
I-
intense.
no, it's not intense. I ended up using force on someone, so I had to go to the dispatch center and get a copy of the radio recording for my report. So I go into the dispatch center, and I start talking to a dispatcher that I know there, and that's when I meet Erin, who's in training, and that's how we first initially meet. Pretty much. I mean, that's the Cliff Notes version right there.
Okay, so then that is all correct. Because I was in training, I was not supposed to be fraternizing with anyone, other dispatchers, police officers, anyone. When you're in training, you're not supposed to do anything. Well, I had went out with another dispatcher, and we had ended up at this bar in Pleasanton, downtown Pleasanton. What was it called? Red something.
Is it Redcoats?
Redcoats, yes,
Pleasant-
Redcoats in
I think so.
Pleasanton. Shout out to Redcoats. So I was there, and there was an officer that Casey was friends with, and also the dispatcher that I was friends with. It was her going away. She was leaving, going to a different agency. And so there were a lot of, different officers and stuff like that there. But I only had eyes for you. So when he walked in, pretty
She
much
couldn't resist me.
I couldn't resist.
Yeah.
And we ended up hanging out that night, and we exchanged information. Then we talked every single day, and then we went on, some dates, and then the rest is history. And it was that easy. I don't think we even officially had like a conversation. I don't know if people do that anymore. Like, oh, will you be my girlfriend?
To be honest, I don't remember.
You should remember. I'm the best thing that happened to you. You should remember that.
Well, I don't dispute that. I'm just saying I don't remember if we ever had an official conversation about our title
No.
or our status.
No. I think our first date or our official first date was August 5th, because August 5th is our anniversary, like our dating anniversary. And then a year
She
later,
knows our date
yeah,
anniversary.
our dating anniversary. And then a year later, you proposed. And in December, December 3rd. Right, December 3rd.
You remember the date I proposed?
Yeah, I think it was December 3rd,
Okay,
2011. Yes, December 3rd, 2011.
correct.
And then we got married October 14th, 2012.
Correct. Yeah. She normally doesn't remember dates. That's why I'm just
No,
like,
it's not that I don't remember the dates. It's just as you get older and you
Yeah.
get into your 40s,
Well,
and
well,
once
tell them
you're a
what your
mom,
license plate used to be.
once you're a mom, then there's this thing called mom brain, and it's just hard for you. It's, we have hormones and stuff like that you don't have, that men don't have to deal with, right? So that's that. So anyway, he was responsible for my license plate, and he does all things cars, and he thought it would be hilarious and amazing to make my license plate our anniversary date.
Well, so she didn't forget it.
Oh, is that why you did it?
Yeah,
Is
because
that for real?
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I
It's not that I would
I didn't,
forget.
I didn't do that because I thought it would be funny. I did it because I loved you.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
See, there
He
you go.
loves me. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we've gotten some questions from the people. There's a bunch. So we're not going to go through all of them, but we love your questions. So if you guys have questions, go to our website, hit us up on social media, whatever, and drop us your questions. And if we can, we will definitely try to answer some of your questions in the episodes. But that means that you have to listen or watch us on YouTube. But that means that you have to be here to hear your questions. So one question that we got that I feel like we should both answer is, why did you want to get married in the first place?
That's a
deep.
good question. The reason why I wanted to get married is deep, but I feel like it's a simple answer. The reason why I wanted to get married is because as a Christian male, I value the sanctity of marriage. And I believe that is something that God has called upon men and women to be.
Ooh, you better preach.
So I just think that it is something that you, for lack of a better term, if you're just hooking up with someone, I don't think that's the purpose that God has for you or the plan that he wants for you. I feel like if you're going to be with someone, you should make that official union and in marriage, because that's the plan and that's how God wants it to be. So that's why I am okay with being married. That's why I wanted to get married, because I just believe in it. And I think that if you're going to be with someone and make this lifelong commitment to someone, then it needs to be holy in front of God. And that's what marriage is.
I love that. So I think for me, I've always had such a example of what marriage should be by my parents. And, I was fortunate enough, and I know not everyone, everyone's journeys are different, but I was fortunate enough to be raised in you know, a household with both of my parents. And I just loved like all of the things that we did together. I mean, it was just, one, I agree with you. Like, I definitely have very deep spiritual ties with the Lord. And I just know that, like, in order for me to live the way that I wanted to live, I could only live that being married. And, I wanted to start a family and I wanted to have kids and all of those things. And I think also seeing my parents and then like even like my grandparents and my aunts and uncles and a lot of people who had influence over my life, just being, just having influence, those were married couples. And I also just feel like there's a lot of things that I can accomplish by myself, but I always wanted a partner for that. And, I was one of, my close girlfriends. Like, I was the last one to get married. And that was hard for me. It was rough. But I would just see everyone and their happiness and, having that built in best friend. I wanted that too. And, I've been thankful that Casey has been that person for me. He definitely gets on my nerves, do not get me wrong, but I think that's in any relationship, right? But it has been nice to, be married. And, I know a lot of people can't say the same thing. That doesn't mean that it's always been easy, because it's definitely not easy all of the time. Definitely have faced a lot of things that I always say we have faced so many things that generally you would hear from divorced couples. But we have made this commitment to one another that we're going to stick by one another and just get through it. And I think that we've done that, Again, hasn't always been easy, but it's definitely been worth it. So,
Right. To kind of piggyback off what you're saying, I think people don't fight for their marriage.
that's true.
And they will let the simplest disagreement and that will balloon into a divorce. They don't fight for it. It's just like, oh, this happened. Oh, okay, I don't want to be with you anymore. I don't want to be with you anymore. Okay, well, now we're divorced. Like, was it really that necessary? Did you fight for your marriage? Did you do everything you could to salvage your marriage? And if your answer is no, then you gave up.
But let's talk about that a little more
Okay.
because, one thing that, and I will say, and this kind of goes into one of the questions that were asked, which is, what are some challenges that we have been through in our marriage and how have we overcome them? So let's dive into that. So when we first got married, we went through premarital counseling and we did it through our church. And I feel like it really set the healthy tone of expectations that we have for one another as we moved into marriage, right? So I think for us, I mean, I remember premarital counseling being like we would go in happy and we would come out not talking to each other sometimes, right? Like because counseling can be heavy like that. I feel like you learn things, you know what I mean, in counseling that you wouldn't, or you feel, I don't know if this was your experience, but for me, I feel like I could go in, that was the one place that I could go in and be unapologetically me and say whatever was on my mind in a way that was respectful in hopes that the counselor, would help, you know, my point get across to you, in a way that it wasn't disrespectful.
Yeah. I so in the counseling, I felt like oftentimes the reason why we would sometimes we go in happy and then come out upset is because just a difference of opinion or a difference of thought or just a difference of how certain things should be done, which is fine because I mean obviously we don't have to agree on everything, but oftentimes we would disagree on something or have a difference of opinion on something in counseling and it would linger after we left counseling
Yeah.
and it was never resolved, and that's why it was an issue because oh, you like pasta, I like pizza, and
Well, pasta and pizza go together.
yeah, but just
I'm
we like
kidding.
opposite things, and then now a day later it's still an issue because we never resolved it in counseling, but we brought it up in counseling and we never really hammered it out to come to some type of resolution.
I also think that like when I think premarital counseling, like if I could give any advice to anyone now who's like, I definitely want to get married. I definitely want, to start a family. I definitely would recommend premarital counseling. I think it's uncommon. I think counseling in general is uncommon. Definitely when we start going down the lines of like divorce and like start having those like real conversations. But with that being said, I think that premarital counseling helped us to kind of dive into topics that a lot of couples don't talk about until after they're married. When they say your first year of marriage is the toughest, oh yeah, no shit, your first year of marriage is the toughest. But I feel like if you go to premarital counseling, it can kind of help to lay some foundation maybe a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, the foundation and everything isn't such a shock
That's true.
because oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Well, you discussed it already in premarital counseling, so you did know that.
Yeah.
So you have an opportunity before you even get married to try to resolve that issues or come to some type of compromise
Yeah.
so you can move past it.
Yeah. It was nice though, like for us, like, I mean, there's no secret. Like when I say that like our journey has been everything but beautiful, that is the truth. When we first, let's jump into it. When we first started dating, so, we were raised very differently and not differently from the point of view where like you didn't have the same values and stuff that I did. I mean, I think a lot of those aligned, and that's the reason obviously that we were attracted to one another. But like I was raised with my mom and dad, you were raised in a single family home with just your mom and your sister. And I think initially I remember coming into that dynamic and feeling very uncomfortable because it had been you, your mom, and your sister for so long. And so now, like, I don't know, was I the first person you brought home? Just say yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I just remember, it just being like this uncomfortable territory and at first not welcoming at all. You know what I mean? From my like it was just, oh wow, okay, this is going to be rough. And it was rough from the very beginning. And I think a large part of that was it had been you, your mom and your sister for so long. So now enter some more estrogen into the picture. It was okay. And to their point, like, well, who is this person? You know what I mean? Is she good for my son and my brother? And
Right.
those things, right? Like, do you feel like I had a fair shot from the beginning?
Do I? No, I mean, I agree with your assessment. I do believe it was tense at first because it was just, something's new and it's unknown. You don't know what someone's intentions are or what plans they have. So I just think it was that
Yeah.
just unknown. Like, is this woman trying to take my son away from me?
Yeah, totally.
So it was tense.
Understandably so, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, as I think any parent would be when you're meeting your kid's spouse and it's very serious. It's not just some fling or we just went out on one date, but when you're in a serious committed relationship,
Yeah.
now it's like, oh, okay, well, this is serious. This is legit. Are they going to get married? What's going to happen? Like, I don't
Mhm.
know. I might be seeing a lot more of this person. So
Mhm.
you kind of,
Whereas with my family, I felt like my family was like, oh, I remember my dad was like, oh, son, you're a police officer? Oh, great. My dad was also law enforcement. So he was so excited at the opportunity to have a potential son in law who, was so relatable. You guys hit it off from the very beginning. And my family was almost throwing me at you. Like, just take her. Oh, you want to marry her? Sure. I give you permission today.
well, I think they knew how great I was.
Okay, well, maybe.
And
Maybe that's what it was.
they saw how handsome I was. And they were like, Aaron, this is a good fit for you.
Yeah, and I also gave them a run for their money. Out of all of their girls, I definitely was the one who probably got on their nerves the most.
Yeah. Yeah, you get
For
on
sure.
mine too.
They were ready
Yeah.
for a change for me. So,
Yeah. Oh, but Aaron was not even going to date me. She wasn't going to date me. Tell them why, Aaron, why you weren't going to date me.
because you were younger than me.
And what
I,
else?
And I wanted someone who was older than me because in my past, I was dating men who were either my age or older. And I was just done with men my age. I wanted
Why else though?
I'm trying to think. Oh, because I wasn't supposed to fraternize.
There's one other thing though.
Yeah, and just the fact that he had braces.
Yeah.
I mean, like
I have braces. Excuse me for trying to fix my
but
teeth.
he had like different color rubber bands and like
Not true. Not true. I
Yeah.
was never one to get colorful.
yeah, you
rubber-
had like blue and red and you were like skipping.
Not true. Not at all.
No, but
true.
in all honesty, he's always been handsome, right? But then when he opened his mouth and I saw he had braces, I'm like, oh my God, how am I supposed to kiss you? I mean, I was a lot younger then, right? But now I can appreciate the straight teeth, right? So I much rather date someone who has braces than someone who now has jacked up teeth. So good looking out.
Well,
Good looking out.
Thank you.
Thank you for getting your teeth fixed. Appreciate it.
I try.
Yeah. So, okay. So we did premarital counseling, and I think that was great. And then our first year of marriage, obviously, we've already touched upon that. We really struggled with obviously infertility. That's when all of that came about. And then I think parenting styles were just also very different. And I just want to put this very little small, I just want to come back to it since I did say I did have a very rough start with my in-laws. Like that was rough. And I know that's common, right? Like I talk to my friends all the time and they're just like, oh my God, my in-law or my mother-in-law is the worst. And I just hate it and all of this stuff. And so what I will say about that is a good part, like even like into like our wedding and stuff like that, me and my mother-in-law never had a relationship at all, even a good relationship, like up into our wedding. And then once we got our kids, I realized like at the end of the day, like I'm such a big family person and I know you are too, And so I'm like, this just can't go on, like maybe we will like each other and maybe we just never gave each other the chance. So unbeknownst to him, I wrote a letter to his mother and we hadn't talked and like we would say hi and bye, right? Like that would be the extent, see each other at family. But I always felt like she didn't like me and she always felt like I didn't like her. So we kind of felt the same way. So unbeknownst to him, I had sent a letter to his mother and just said, like, I never envisioned life to be this way, and I'm really sorry pretty much for anything that I've done, but I think it's important. I love your son so much, and I definitely want you to be a part of our life. We have kids now, we're fostering to adopt, and, like, I want my kids to meet their grandmother and, to have a relationship. And I think I'd always done a really good job of keeping my relationship with your sister and your nephew, but it was always just that little awkwardness with your mom. So she wrote me a letter back and pretty much, and I'll never forget, I'm not going to cry, but I will never forget her saying this. And I think it's
Because you said this wasn't a crying episode.
it's not, I'm not going to cry. But I think that this is so important to share, when you talk about struggles in marriage and maybe not, like maybe you're listening and you haven't started, on the right foot with your in-laws. Like there is always, like, never lose hope. So she sends me this letter back. And I remember in the letter, she said, when I was married to your father, she said, or Charles' father, she said, I had the most evil mother-in-law, right? And I didn't have a good relationship with her at all. And I vowed to myself at that point that I would, what did she say exactly? I vowed to myself that I would always make sure that I was, the most welcoming mother-in-law. And she says, and I haven't been that to you. And I'm really sorry. And those words, like, I will forever hold on to. And so then I think we called each other and then we talked. And then it was like this surprise. I remember telling you, like, oh, I think we're going to your mom's house. And I remember you being like, what? We're going to, I'm like, yeah, we're going to go to your mom's house. We're going to do dinner. And, my mother-in-law recently passed away suddenly. And, it was really hard for me. I'm not going to cry. It was really hard for me because, of all the years that we've been together, I feel like we've wasted so much time just not getting along, and then once we got to this point where I could be open with her and she could be open with me, we realized that, like, oh my God, like, you're like the best mother-in-law. And she really was, like, so I can say, that I have, no regrets. It's sad, of course, that, she's not here with us anymore, but, I really have no regrets. And so I feel like that's something that, like, has helped shape our marriage too. You know what I mean? Like, that was a big struggle that we had. And we were constantly fighting over it. I was constantly like, you need to make a decision. And his mom was like, you need to make a decision. And then we finally were like, no, he doesn't need to make a decision. He can pick both of us. I'm not trying to be his mother, and his mother is not trying to be his wife. Like, there's room enough for both of us. And I'm just so happy that we overcame that. I'm sure that took a lot of stress off of you because I'm sure that was tough. We did a lot of family vacations and stuff. I talked to your mom like every single day on the telephone. She's like a big sister / mother-in-law to me. So that was great. But I think that, to answer one of those questions of some of the biggest struggles that we've had and had to overcome is definitely the in-law, drama, definitely overcome it.
I didn't, like you said, your father was a police officer. I was a police officer. So we kind of bonded on that. And I've always had a good relationship with your mom and your father. So,
and my sisters.
And your sisters.
My sisters loved him more than me. I'm the middle child, so you're going to get a lot of those. And if you're a middle child, you'll understand. But they definitely, I remember Brittany said something to you. Do you remember what she said about if you ever want Aaron to lose weight?
Oh, break up with her.
Break up with her. Break up with her and then get back with her or something. But yeah. But then they're like, no, please don't break up with her. Stay with her and take her away from us. So to this day, I mean, it's nice, that you have, this relationship. And, since we're talking about it and, one of the other biggest struggles too, and not necessarily in our marriage, but just something that we definitely endured was my father passed away suddenly in December of 2019. December and April are horrible months for us.
Some tough months. We lost both our parents in December
Yeah. And then both of our parents' birthdays are in April, like a week away from each other. And their deaths were a week away. Isn't that crazy? Right. So in the last couple of years, it's been tough. But I think, I really felt for you when my dad passed away, because since your father was never in your life, I know my dad was that to you.
Yeah.
And there was never any like, you're the son-in-law, right? Like my parents have been really good about that with all of their son-in-laws, is no, you're my son, and so I know that was tough on you. But just something else that was, super hard for us to, get through. But I will say, being married and going through just things like the loss of your parents together, right? Like, who knew? It's actually ironic that when I lost my father, where were we at? Do you remember? Where did you tell me?
We were at my mom's house.
Yeah, we were at your mom's house.
Yeah, because we were getting ready to go to that Christmas party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so just like, I was at his mom's house, and then 2 years later, almost to the day, a week past that, then his mom passed away. And I remember we were driving to LA on the 5 in heavy fog, and literally get the phone call. We were like 3 hours away from home. And I remember I was driving, thank God. And I remember we turned around and I think I was probably going like 120 miles per hour. I was like, CHP, just pull me over. I have a good reason, but, just getting through like stuff like that. I think, this is where having that built-in life partner, losing your parents is never easy, right? Like it is the worst pain that I can say that I've experienced, bigger than infertility. I can say for me, losing my dad, losing his mom, my mother-in-law was, it was rough. But thankful that we had one another to lean on each other to get through. And every day is still tough. Like even maneuvering that with kids, just think about all of the changes that like our kids, like, Kaylin, someone who's already like lost, I guess is dealing with the loss of her biological mother, right? And now with us, and then Kaylin had an amazing relationship with my mother-in-law, and a great relationship with my dad too, but it was like being hit, it's like from every single angle.
Yeah. It's almost like they couldn't catch a break. It's like they
Yeah.
they were born into some really tough situations, and then we get them, and then bam, you just lose 2 grandparents in a span of 2 years.
Yeah.
So it was extremely tough time for us and for the kids.
Okay. We need to lighten the mood. Let's find one more question that might be fun. You want to find it?
Sure.
Okay. He's going to find the question.
Let's see. These are some good questions.
And remember, if you have questions for us, send us a message. We would love to answer them if we can.
In what ways has your marriage pushed you to grow as an individual?
Oh, that's a good one. In what ways has my marriage pushed me to grow? I think that I've grown so much. I think that for me personally, I just think that our journey has been so turbulent, like seriously, that I have just done everything that I can to use all of those negative, I don't want to call them negative, but I think more than anything, I've just used, our turbulent journey to build resilience. And I know for me, like I've changed a lot, me personally, mindset, maturity. I've grown in spirituality, communication, like all of those things. So this isn't really answering that question, but to the best that I can. I think that I've grown so much. I think that us being from 2 totally different backgrounds and, learning to parent together, and learning that like my way is not the only way.
Yes. Thank you, Jesus. Yes.
And like just being open to seeing things differently because of your background and your experiences. And yeah, I mean, I just think, what was the question? I just think that, I don't know, like I've just grown so much. I feel like when you go through, disappointing and negative things in life, like there are 2 different attitudes that you can have. You can either learn to adapt, and, a lot of the time adapting means change, or you can stick with your ways. And I believe that on the other side of change is growth. And so, I think for me, I've just, have been like, okay, well, this is going to happen like this. Great. That sucks. But, you know, I got to move forward, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my answer.
Okay. I think for me, marriage, I've grown because I think marriage has really taught me that, and to be very frank, that oftentimes I know as a husband, you do things because you have to and not because you want to.
Ooh, that sounds, what you mean? Give me an example.
Because I feel like as a husband, you are the head of the household. So just as an example, just being a provider. So now there are kids that depend on me. There is a wife that depends on me. And me not providing for my family is not an option. Like that's just, it's not an option. So if I had to pick up cans all night to provide for my family, that's just what I have to do. And it's not because I want to do it, but it's because I have to. Because I now have individuals that depend upon me for safety and security, and in that security, financial security. They depend on me. So I can't be, or as a husband, at least in my opinion, you can't be lazy. You can't be unwilling to do things that are uncomfortable because you don't like them. Because if you have a family and they're depending on you, then you have to do it, whether you like it or not. There are so many days at my job where I had to work mandatory overtime. Did I want to do it? No. But did I do it? Yeah, because I had to. There were so many days where I would leave before everybody was awake, and I would come home and everybody would be asleep. And I never saw my wife. I never saw my kids. And it was rough. And it sucked. It hurt. I was exhausted, which then in turn probably made me more irritable and made me have a short fuse and made my tolerance and my patience really low. But I didn't have any other option. So I just had to do it.
Yeah.
And it is what it is.
I also think that, society tells us in one way, this is the man should be the provider, the woman should be the person who stays at home and cooks and cleans and all of that. And I feel like that's so old school. And I tell you all of the time, I think that's the difference too. Not to knock anyone who may feel like that, I'm just made to be at home and, XYZ. I mean, anyone who knows me knows that I'm a hustler. I've been self-employed since I was, you know, 18 years old. I've worked 2 and 3 jobs, put myself through college, all of these things as well. And I think that was one of the things that was hard for me, to have someone who wants to provide. And I'm like, wait, but that's my job too, right? So I think I remember just being at home after we had gotten Savannah, and then very shortly after got Kaylin, running my boutique, and just needing help, because there's no way, you were working like crazy. And I think you were working graveyards, which sucked. But, it's not what you asked for. It's not what you wanted, right? But that's what we needed at that time, for you to have the days off that we needed. And for us, just for family sustainability more than anything. But yeah, I think that we both, I will say, have grown tremendously and have learned to compromise. I
That's
think
huge.
compromise is huge. I mean, let's not get it wrong. We've been to therapy lots of times. And kind of to your point up before of, people don't fight for their marriage anymore. I think that's true. I think part of the reason that we are still together to this day is that we have fought for our marriage. I have fought. I know me personally, when I didn't feel like fighting anymore, I was ready to give up. And I will say, like, I am that one. I don't do it anymore, but I used to be that one that would say, this isn't going to work. Let's just get a divorce. Like, go be with someone else, because this isn't going to work. Because in that moment, that's what it felt like. It felt like, no, this isn't going to work, And I think that there's just a lot of soul searching that you have to do and never stop growing and never, personal development is huge. I tell people all the time, even in business or just in everyday life, like start your day with personal development, whatever that looks like. And then definitely pour that into your marriage as well. Definitely do date nights. If there's one thing that we have, I feel like mastered is we always make time for ourselves. And what does that look like? That could just be last night we did date night, but it was literally like at home in our bedroom. You know what I mean? With the kids in bed with the door closed. That could be sushi, you know what I mean? Ordered in. That could be you eating outside, putting your kids to bed. That could be going to the movies. That could be weekend trips. That could be,
Yeah.
really anything. But I think it's so important that you really put in to your marriage. And I think and I can say women, not to say men don't do this, but women definitely. I feel like when we get married, sometimes we lose ourselves. And that's emotionally, that's mentally, that's physically. We lose ourselves. We feel like, oh, we got them. So now we don't have to keep ourselves up. And that couldn't be further from the truth, right? I think it's just, we've been through a lot. And I think that we've just made this commitment to one another that, like, this is it. Like, I'm not trying to get a divorce and,
I'm too old. I ain't trying
like try and find like
Yeah.
I love companionship and I love to have someone to bounce ideas off of and to plan vacations with and I just love having someone who's always there no matter what. And so I think that our marriage has been great. It's been tough. It's been tough.
Remember, like you said, you can't stop dating your spouse even when you're married, and you can't always put your relationship and your intimacy and your closeness on the back burner for other things, like, for example, the kids.
Yeah.
So you have to prioritize your relationship and that intimate time together. That needs to be just as important,
Yes.
because you have to nurture your relationship. This is oftentimes couples get divorced right after their kids graduate high school and go off to college.
Yeah, because you realize that you didn't like that person anymore, but you stayed together for the kids, and so many people do that.
Yeah, the last 18 years, we've been roommates. You haven't been a couple, you've been roommates, because everything you do revolves around your kids. And you haven't done anything to nurture your relationships. You stopped dating each other, and everything you guys have been doing for the last couple of years has just been strictly transactional.
And we have had those times, but I think we snap out of those very soon. Like all it takes is like, oh my goodness, we haven't done anything for ourselves. We actually notice those times when we start to fight a lot, because for the most part we don't fight. However, there are periods where we fight a lot. And a lot of those times are the times that we realize that we are not putting into ourselves, but also not putting into one another as well. So, at the end of the day, marriage is tough, but it's definitely worth it. And
You have to want it, though. You
Yeah.
have to want it, and you have to be willing to sacrifice and put in the effort for it, because like she said, it's not easy. I mean, and anything that's worth having is not going to be easy. You got to work for it. I mean, if marriage was super easy, then everybody would be married,
totally. So,
but they're not. So let's transition to something a little bit more lighthearted. So I have a question that you're probably not going to know the answer to. What is my favorite food?
how am I going to not know the answer? Italian food. Italian.
That is a style of food that I really
Oh my
like.
God.
What? Okay, let me go zero in on the specific. What is my favorite dish?
I don't know, some sort of seafood pasta with scallops. That's seafood. Am I right?
No,
Oh my God. Spaghetti,
no,
lasagna.
no.
I don't know. What?
Mac and cheese.
Oh my God. That is so weird.
And
A
not just,
grown ass man, and
Can
then
I
your favorite
finish?
food is mac and cheese.
let me
That
finish.
is ridiculous.
And not just any mac and
Ridiculous.
cheese. Okay, they would be ridiculous if it was like the box Kraft mac and cheese, but I'm talking about homemade mac and cheese.
I don't believe
That-
that's your favorite. That's a lie. How's that
How
your
you
favorite
gonna
food?
tell me what my favorite food is a lie?
Okay, right.
It's mac and cheese. Specifically the mac
Okay,
and
what's
cheese my
mine?
mom used to make.
Okay, what's mine?
Your favorite style of food or
No,
your favorite
my favorite
dish?
food. My favorite food, like yours.
Favorite food. Mexican?
My favorite food, not my favorite style.
Your favorite food. Okay. That's a tough one.
Yeah,
I
it
have,
is
I have
tough.
two things in mind.
Okay, so what are they?
What is the enchilada casserole?
Okay, and what's your second?
Honestly, no, I don't want to say that anymore. I'm going to say crab.
You're wrong on both. I don't have a favorite food. I like all food. I am a foodie. There is not
Okay.
one that I love, but do I make a bomb enchilada casserole? Yes. Do I love crab? Yes.
Oh, okay.
But I don't have a favorite. They're all my favorite.
Okay.
I eat everything. I don't like Chinese food. That's the only thing that I'll
don't like
eat.
but she'll eat sushi, which I don't.
That's two different.
I
They're
know, but they're
Japanese.
closely related, though.
No, they're not. I would think Thai food and Chinese food would be more closely
Those are
related.
closely related, too.
I love Thai food. Love me some good Thai food. We should go eat after this because I'm hungry now.
Okay, we can make that happen. We can make that happen.
Well, you know what we should do? We should do a game show episode. We should do that.
Or just Q&A.
Yeah, if you guys would love to see a
Yeah.
game show style episode, let us know. Send us a message. Anyways, thanks for listening and watching us. This was a fun episode. I didn't cry like I said I would. Did you think I was going to cry?
I did.
Okay, yeah. I held it together. When we got to the part
Well,
where I was talking about my father and my mother-in-law, I'm surprised I didn't cry. But I'm happy I held that together for you guys.
Well, yeah.
I promise no more tissues.
Death is
Well, I don't
always
promise,
a sensitive
but-
topic.
Yeah. Anyway,
But-
please make sure to like, rate, subscribe, and share this with all of your friends and family.
Yes.
Please. We appreciate you guys. And if you need anything, if you have any questions, as always, make sure you reach out to us and we will maybe we'll answer some more questions on our blog.
Yeah.
So go head over to
Absolutely.
thisbeautifulstruggle.com and check those out. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching.